Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Back at the Ranch. I'm Karl. You guys know me as KF or simply as Karl from Kilimanjaro. And tonight with me, I have Anthony Cupini. Cupini, how's it going? Cupini, you were eliminated last night. How are you feeling?
I feel screwed, but I'm still chilling. It was disappointing way earlier than I expected.
Yeah, I mean, it always sucks when, someone that really is excited and has so much passion for the game doesn't make it past the rendezvous. And I know it must be a bitter, more bitter than sweet feeling at this point. But hopefully you did have a good time with us. And who knows, maybe we'll see you come back at some point.
I would love to.
So with that, let's just dive right in, Cupini. How was your experience from your perspective? How was this expedition for you?
It was amazing, honestly. Like, I thought I had set myself up to go a lot farther than I did. Unfortunately, that tribe swap really deteriorated my game. And then Philip picking Mariana just put the nail in the coffin.
Well, we'll dig a little deeper into that in a little bit. But before we get there, let's talk about day zero. So day zero, Docs drops you guys off in a room, base camp, all of you guys together in one room, and the game starts right away. How are you feeling when Docs basically says game on?
I mean, it was definitely nerve-wracking. I've never used Discord before, so like being able to see like who was in what room and who was talking to who, that was really different because like I like to be sneaky with it. So when I'm like exposed on exactly who I'm talking to, I was not prepared for that. Fortunately enough, I did talk to the people that I wanted to work with in the game, like Bridget, Mariana, Philip at the start, who else? Oh, Bambi. So I did somehow luck out.
And you ended up in a party, and we'll talk about that in just a second, but you ended up in the party comprised primarily of the people you're mentioning right now. Was there anyone on day zero that you either wanted to talk to, but didn't get a chance to talk to on day zero, or that you got to talk to, but didn't end up in your party by the end of the night?
No, actually, like the group, like the main people that I talked to the entire time was like Neil, Philip, Bridget, Mariana, Bambi, and those were the five that I ended up being on a try with. So like that at that moment, I was like, "Holy shit!" Like it's everyone that I wanted. I feel so good right now.
Do you play lottery, Cupini? Because honestly, like you can't get any luckier than that.
Well, over the summer, I did waste about $200 on lottery tickets and won $20 back. So we're not gonna do that.
Ever. All right.
This is probably the luckiest time for me. But I was stoked.
All right. So then a few, about an hour later, you guys are basically brought to another room where it's revealed that the team captains, Janet and Kelley, have been picking teams. Now, first of all, what was your reaction when you first heard that this season would be captained by Janet and Kelley? And then second question, the follow-up to that is, how exciting was it to be picked by the legend herself, Kelley Wentworth?
So like coming in, like I did see it off of Janet's story actually. And that's where I was like, you know what? Like, why the hell not? So I applied and I was like, I feel good. And then they're like, oh, we're full. But if someone drops out, like, we'll let you know. So I was like, ooh, like, come on. Like, I was praying because I really wanted to be on Kelley's team. I just have a lot of respect for Kelley. And don't get me wrong, I love Janet. Janet is a sweetheart. But the way that I play my games are more like Kelley than I would say Janet, which is why I felt that like having Kelley as that team captain or mentor would like benefit me in the long run. Mm-hmm. So when I was so nervous, especially because I was like picked towards the very end. So like I was like, ooh, like, and I was seeing who was getting chosen by which team. So when I saw all the people that I wanted to work with get picked by Kelley, I was like praying. And I may or may have not like finagled my way. I figured, if I shot my audition video in the Cambodia flag right behind me, Kelley might have a little,
So, you were kind of pre-gaming before the season even started in a way, no?
Yeah. I was like, I want to be on Team Kelley. So I was like, let's throw everything we got out there and see what happens.
All right, great. Nice to hear. And also love the passion for the game, I have to say. All right, so then at some point after the teams are picked, you guys are brought separated into teams before light out, and you get to talk to Kelley as a group. Now, what did Kelley say at this point that really stuck to you before the game started?
Well, it was just like it wasn't as much as she said anything. It was just like you could feel her passion, and then you like think about like seeing her play the game. And you're like, okay, well, I'm passionate and I love her, so like now I'm gonna go try and kick ass for her. So especially because she was like a new captain, I guess she hasn't been a captain before,
Yeah,
so
first time.
she's pretty much as new, just like we were. So it just felt surreal, honestly. I know we just asked her a lot of questions about like her and when she played, and it kind of like deteriorated off, but like we all knew like deep down like what we were set up to do, and that was win for Kelley and our charities.
Oh, that's great to hear. Okay, so then you guys go away for the night. The game officially starts on the next day. Now, I'd love to say that it was smooth sailing for you from this point on, but unfortunately, you guys lose the first challenge, and your team has to go to Crossroad. Now, couple things before that. First, the first twist of the one, the two twists of the season are revealed. Number one, you guys have your shot at the dark like twist, which is on Expedition was called Destiny Token, and then you also have the serrated peak. Now, what did you think about both twists at this point in the game? Was that something that it start like what kind of like what was happening in Cupini's head as he hears these twists? Explain to him.
Yeah, so the serrated peak, I kind of just like threw out of my head. I was like, that's not something I'm gonna stress over. Like, if that comes into the moment, I'll handle it then. But for now, like, it's not relevant. The Destiny token definitely it was definitely a unique choice. Unfortunately, I don't want to get into it yet. We're gonna talk about that later,
Yeah.
but definitely was a twist to the game.
And was it something that you looked for? You like did it cause you to rethink the way you were going to approach the game, or was it just something that you were like, I have to remember this, and not really affected the way you played?
Well, coming in like that first Crossroads was nerve-wracking because like we didn't really know where we stood. Like we'd only talked one time the night before, so it was like all over the place. I never considered playing it the first time.
Okay.
I did, however, consider throwing a vote at the first tribal because I was nervous that Jess would play her shot in the dark, because I was like, I mean, she knew she was going home. We all knew she was going home. So I was like, I mean, if I was her, I would have played it, but she didn't. But I definitely considered throwing a vote just in case, because I was like, I don't know who this lady is, and I haven't talked to her at all. So like, what if she writes my name down?
Yeah. So walk me through that strategy session. What led to you guys voting for Jess that night? Because if I'm not mistaken, it was a pretty unanimous vote. In fact, it was a pretty unanimous vote. Jess voted for Bambi, but everyone else voted for Jess. So what led to basically her demise in the game from your perspective that night?
Well, from my perspective was Philip immediately trying to take control. And so I was just going to ride with whatever he threw out. And I knew that I had me and Bridget were tight. It was just hard to get away. But like we both sensed that connection from the start. So we knew like eventually we get talking time. So as long as it wasn't me or Bridget at the time, I was like, I'm cool with it. And then when everyone was on board for Jess, I was like, yep, why not? As long as Sandra would say, as long as it's not me.
Now, just to get a little messy here, if it wasn't Jess, who would it have been if you had to say in it that night?
If I had a say in it that night, I mean, you're at the beginning of the game and you have to think logically. So like, I personally probably would have also chosen Jess, but like if I couldn't have chosen Jess, if I'm thinking of like my bitchy side, I would have trusted my guy, got rid of Philip, just like you'll see later.
Well, why don't you talk to us about that? Because from this day on, and I mean, it feels like for the majority of the game, your perception of Philip, it really very much guided your game, determined in a lot of ways your game and your fate in the game. So why don't you tell us, was it at this point, at that night, because Philip was driving the vote, or at least you thought he was the one driving the vote that night? Was it the reason why you basically felt like he was a bigger threat than you originally thought on day zero? Because you did say you wanted to work with him on day zero. So what changed? What changed from day zero to day one?
Well, like, I'm always open to working with anyone. Like, when you're out on the island or in the Discord, like, they're not your friends. Now, I will say, like, I'm a hard ass bitch. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to win. But I do have my soft spots, and I definitely had it for like Bambi, Mariana, and Bridget. Like, I knew I had their backs 100%. And so the thing that changed with Philip is he was just so controlling, and the way he uses his tone and words, I knew that if you let him go unnoticed, he would win that game. So I knew that if I couldn't win it, I didn't want him to win it. So I was going to throw any idea.
Now, that sounds personal. So what, is there a reason why specifically it went from like, oh, like he's a threat, which is kind of like, general, but then you did something that was a little bit more personal here. Is there a reason why it became personal to you at this point in the game?
Well, it wasn't personal. It was just like, I knew he was going to be a good player. I could just feel it. And I always trust my senses. And then it was kind of feeding off the others. Olivia got frustrated with the way he treated her the night that I got voted out. So I was like, you know what? Like, maybe if I plant this idea in their heads that like Philip is such a threat, that they'll keep me and let me work with them.
Okay.
So it wasn't necessarily.
So let's put a pause on that, and let's get back to that in a little bit, because the next day you guys win the challenge, right? So you're safe. Now, how was the second night for you? The fact that you guys were safe, were you able to use that, stress-free time to basically build on these relationships and solidify anything concrete?
Yeah, it was definitely nice. I finally got to actually have my chit chat with Bridget and Mariana, and I was right from the start with my feelings, and I knew I would like them. That is like with the Discord, you see where everyone is. It was a little nervous, especially like when you saw the way Philip acted at the first night in the first Crossroads, to see him like bundled up in a room with like Neil and Troy and like all like the older guys, and then have like me with everyone else, and like everyone was switching rooms talking, but it was just them solid in a room. That was also really nerve-wracking, because it's like, you're in a game and you never stop strategizing. So it was just like, I mean, I like Philip as a person, but when it came down to the game, it was just like there was like a fishy feeling after fishy feeling after fishy feeling. And if you have a fishy feeling on Survivor, you got to act on it at some point, or Expedition.
Yeah, I get that. Now, unfortunately, these relationships would never have the chance to be tested, because on day 3, another twist is thrown your way, and there's a swap, right? And not only is there a swap where you guys have to change teams, change parties, but you end up being split in 3 different parties, where you're basically 5 members in each party. So basically getting a majority in this situation, it becomes very easy. And so, it tends to be a very precarious situation to be in, even when you do have a majority, which turns out from the former Team Kelley, you weren't the only team where you guys had the majority. Now, you did not lose the first challenge as a new tribe, right? You guys had Olivia and Danielle with you, right?
Yeah.
So you guys did not lose the first challenge, but you guys did lose the next one on day 4. And so at this point, it's a very tricky situation for you, because not only is Bambi not there, so she's eligible to be voted out, but she cannot vote. So that's, losing one team, former Team Kelley. But then also, Philip decides to throw and to send Mariana to Serrated Peak. And so you are now left by yourself as a former Team Kelley with Danielle and Olivia. Now, I just feel like I said so much, but like, can you kind of summarize like how it felt basically having these like, punches back to back, like, knocking your game down, like, how did it feel going through that? And eventually, like, how did you decide to approach this mountain? Because it's like, it's not like, it would have been so difficult for you to do anything at that point.
Yeah, I was pissed. I was really mad. Like, I was fuming, but I was trying not to explode because, if you explode in those games, it's like an automatic reason. So going back to the end of the challenge, I remember like, if I just would have held on to that damn egg for like 20 more seconds, I would have been safe. But no, it definitely sucked because I was like not expecting, you go in with the majority and you're like, this is awesome. Like, I can breathe again.
Mm-hmm.
But you should never feel comfortable. And I guess I did feel a little comfortable. And then, if Mariana would have stayed, I know for a fact Danielle would have gone home that night. Like, we had talked to Olivia earlier while Danielle wasn't there, and like Olivia agreed. But it was just unfortunate. And like, I knew when Philip was picking and he started to say Mariana, and I was like shaking my head. I was like, no. Like, I feel like after that, Team Janet would have definitely dominated. I mean, we had lost Troy because he had got Medivac. We lost Jess the first night. And so we were down. And then, I got voted out.
At this point, Team Kelley is in dire need of some, some help.
I really thought he was going to pick Bridget and save Bridget from that team full of Team Janets. And then me and Mariana would have been fine taking out, like, we either would have gone with Bambi or Danielle. Obviously pitched for Danielle, but since Bambi wasn't there, it would have been an easy way for us to all survive, even though I loved Bambi. But it's a game. You got to do what's best for you. Yeah. But I definitely think, like, that decision for Philip to pick Mariana definitely altered the direction of the entire season. I mean, I don't really know anything that really happened because I've been so busy and traveling and stuff. But from a number standpoint, definitely took a hit.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you just said something also pretty important here, because from Ahmad's perspective, during that strategy time, it seems like you did not do as much as you could have to be to really, like, make something happen. Now, we just talked about all the things that could have happened and probably should not have happened, but this is the situation that you were put in. So what was your plan going into strategy time before the crossroad at this point? Because it was only you, Danielle, and Olivia. And for most of the night, Danielle and Olivia last night were together in a room and you were by yourself in another room. What did you try to do to stir or shake things up to try to regain some control on the night?
Right. So, like, I was definitely so pissed at Philip for picking Mariana and leaving me on my own that the more Olivia kept talking about how she felt degraded by Philip, I figured I would use that situation to, like, build a fire in her and, like, have her wanting to take out Philip and then, like, offer to help her do that.
Okay.
So, like, for the first 45-ish minutes, we all sat in there together. My plan was just to try to keep everyone in there, have a civil combo, like, not let things spiral out, and just, like, keep getting Olivia amped up. And, Bambi wasn't there. And so I was just like, we can just get rid of Bambi.
I think you may have succeeded in ramping Olivia up. Unfortunately, Philip was not as an option last night, right? And so, right. So as much as you ramped her up, what did you do to offer? Like, at this point, I guess you're trying to say maybe Bambi as an option. Like, do you think you did enough last night to offer Bambi up as an option, or is it possible that your game was way too focused on your arguments were way too focused on Philip? Because from Ahmad's perspective, I think you were focusing a little too much on Philip last night.
Yeah, I think I definitely was, but I think I was just trying to use it as like a way to like kind of pull in Olivia to like, like to connect with her. And I
Hmm.
figured if I could connect with Olivia, that I would be fine.
Okay.
And it wasn't until Daniel was like, "Hey, Olivia, do you want to like talk in this other room?" And I was just like, "Fuck
Well, she
me."
got there before you did.
Well, I wasn't gonna ask because I was like, let's just keep it in here. Like we
Mm,
all agreed Bambi earlier on, whatever. And the
okay.
second y'all said that, I just knew. And I was so triggered. So like, right before we went off to tribal, I just made a little plea and I like pledged that like I would be loyal to them. And I am a loyal player. Like if I say I have your back, I'll have your back. But if you do something to piss me off, the
Yeah.
contract's ripped up, it's burned.
Yeah. Well, basically, Crossroad ends up being pretty much that. Basically, you did definitely reiterate your point on Philip trying to rile up both Danielle and Olivia with Philip. I think Docs would also agree, maybe a little too much. And then you did talk about potentially throwing in Bambi's name instead. But perhaps it was too late at that point. And perhaps who knows? There's an all women's alliance getting ready. So, and they just wanted more women to move on forward in the game. Who knows? That being said, you were the one voted out, and so now on the following night, it was you were voted out, and then you find out before you're sent away that you actually have a chance to come back in the game. How are you feeling when Doc says it's not over yet?
Well, I mean, I was like shocked because, I had just gotten voted out. Like the Discord started going crazy. And I'm just sitting there and I thought about it and I was like, oh my God, like they would have voted together. I should have just played my Destiny token no matter what. And so, like, that was the thing that was going on my head. And then they're like, we have a video to play for you. We have a video. And I'm just like, I don't see a video. And I'm just like so triggered that I got tribe screwed. I was like so shocked because I like acted like this super innocent, like sweet kid the whole time, and like I was just like rolling
Or
with
did
everyone.
you really act super innocent?
Not till the second to last night. I mean, before that, I was pretty quiet, like not my normal self.
Yeah.
I'm pretty like I would say I'm an aggressive person, but I'm also like a very upfront. Like I'll tell you how it is. So like I held back so many times within the first 4 days. And it wasn't until like right when I got voted out that Olivia was like, oh, or not Olivia, Jenny was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I was just like, shut up. Like, I don't care about you being sorry. Like, I would have helped you, but you know what? Whatever happens to you can happen to you.
Okay, so then you end up joining Jess, Bridget, Bill, and the other Anthony, little Anthony, and the serrated Peak Players party.
Right.
And you guys have a chance on the next day to fight, to potentially vote two people back into the game. Now, tell me, was there any conversation before the actual challenge? And what was your strategy going into the challenge?
My strategy going into the challenge was just give it my all. Like, I wanted two of us to get back in, but like, most importantly, I wanted me and Bridget to have a chance to get back in because I felt like, if I was a viewer, like I would want to see that relationship blossom. So, and I loved Bridget. So I was like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get us back in.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, so you guys end up going to Crossroad. Well, you guys come second, so you don't get to vote two people in. You get to vote one person in, and you guys make it to Crossroad. And the person who ends up getting voted back in was Jess. Any particular feelings about Jess being that person voted back in?
okay, so Jess is super sweet, but from a game standpoint, I was a little pissed. I felt like if I got back in, I had the best chance to go the furthest out of all of them.
Okay.
Reasoning was like I still had Mariana, I still had Bambi, like that bridge, although like I had burned it with Philip, he didn't necessarily know that it was burned. So I could have like worked my way in there. And then, like Neil was still in. Neil's super dope, by the way. I loved Neil. And then like there was the team Janet and there was like Katie who was funny. And like I could tell when I got voted out that Olivia did feel guilty. So like I didn't want her to feel like, we could have talked and like, because I'm a people person and I use my words to get what I want.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured if I got back in, that was telling me like, all right, now it's time to work some magic. So I felt like I
Yeah.
was set up. The Jess thing, unfortunately, like we had discussed after, actually turned out to be an accident.
Yeah.
Just
So yeah. Yeah. So you guys were probably able to talk a little bit about it after. And so basically, the other Anthony, little Anthony, and Bill were basically trying to vote for the person who they thought had the least chance of going back in, so that they could increase their chances. Funnily enough, that basically meant that Bill got 0 votes to go back to get back into the game. And Anthony only ended up getting 1 vote, which was Jess's vote. And then Jess ended up with the 2 votes. I do see that both you and Bridget ended up voting for each other. And so
we
you
never
guys
even got
did
to talk
well.
about it.
Yeah. But
Never
then
got
I
to talk
guess what you
about
guys should have done maybe was trying to convince, Jess or one of the others to vote for you instead. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And with that, last night ended up being your last night in the game. So
Right.
moving forward now, with everyone left in the game at this point, who do you think you're rooting for? Who do you want to see make it far and potentially win?
I'm gonna have to say Bambi or Mariana.
Okay. Any reason why?
Too many other people just irked me. I wouldn't mind Neil either.
Yeah.
I don't think Philip, in my opinion, will make it far. I definitely want to see either Neil, Mariana, or Bambi make it and win. Just because they're OG Team Kellys and
So basically, Team Kelley minus Philip.
yeah. I mean, I would not be mad if Philip won, but I just don't think he will.
Okay.
In my own opinion.
Okay. Is there anyone you don't want to see? I'm just being messy at this point.
I don't want to see Danielle win at all because I probably shouldn't get too messy, so I'm just gonna leave it at that.
We're expecting the mess out of you, Cupini.
It was like she was so chaotic all the time. Like she's either driving 5 minutes before the challenge, or there's people screaming in her back mic 24/7, and she's scrambling around. And I'm just like, girl, get your shit together. Like we're here to play.
All right, well, you said it, not me. With that, Cupini, before I let you go, I want to know what was your highlight and your low light of your experience on Expedition? As Robert would say from season 2, what was your rose and your thorn?
My rose was definitely like slaying that first challenge. I got the MVP, obviously. I scored way more than anybody else. And like, I just killed that shit. I guess, wait, it was Rose and what? Thorn?
And Thorn, yeah. What was your low light?
Thorn was definitely that tribe swap. Then Mariana got snagged and Bambi couldn't make it that night.
Yeah.
And it was just a complete shit show. And it was literally.
I do have a point of contention to make here. So you were not necessarily swap screwed because you ended up at the best possible situation. The circumstances that followed the swap were not advantageous to you, but you were not swap screwed. Like terminology, that's precision of language here.
Technically, I wasn't swap screwed, but definitely the events after
that followed for sure. I agree.
Unlucky and unfortunate, and literally the last thing ever on my mind. Like,
that makes sense.
Into a tribe swap with a 3-2 majority, and then be down 2-1 at the crossroads.
Yeah.
And that, like, I think that was the reason I was just so triggered, because I was like, really, like, I had it, I had the chance to succeed.
But with these games, like I say this all the time, and people are probably tired of hearing me say it, but woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? It's like, what would have happened, could have happened, should have happened. Unfortunately, it didn't. And so with that, Cupini, I want to thank you for coming on our show. It was a really fun time watching you play. I hope you had as much fun as we had watching you.
Oh, I did.
All right, perfect. And we hopefully will get to see you again. I mean, an all-star season is always looking for entertainers, I think. So hopefully we'll get to see Cupini in an all-star season, being messier and shadier, perhaps.
We got Chaos Cass and Cagayan. Bring on Chaos Cupini. I'll start the fire and I'll watch it burn.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you again, Cupini. And with that, this has been another episode of Back at the Wrench. I'll see you next week with the next week. No, you probably will see Jess next week. Bye and see you soon.